Welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, we're going to talk about the Grizzlies being willing to move Ja Morant. We're going to talk a little bit about the Portland Trail Blazers. Bryce has some ideas about what teams should look at the NBA trade deadline, as well as talking a little bit about the Pacers, which I think we have not done once on this show this year. They might be the only team we have not talked about yet on the show this year. So I'm excited to do that. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? As I mentioned on our last episode, I was hoping for a snow day here in Southwest Kansas so I could get off from teaching and watch some basketball. We got said snow day, but I did not get to watch as much basketball as I wanted because the thing about a snow day is it snowed and then I had to shovel said snow off our driveway. And then I got to play a little bit of snow football with my kids and some of the other kids on the block, play a little interception, which I think that takes priority over watching a little bit of film. So not quite as much film as what I thought, but I think I'm in still pretty good shape.
I'm excited to catch up on the Saturday games of basketball.
Saturday
week.
stresses me out, Sam. I'm not going to lie. I just look at the slate of games and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I'm so stressed. I'm going to miss something important, like who played well, who didn't. So Saturdays are stressful.
And this one felt like kind of lower key too. Like obviously you had the Wisconsin-Michigan game, which was really, really fun. I did watch that. And I watched the Duke game as well. But other than that, like I'm just like kind of catching up today. This is the plan. So in that vein, I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do with the NBA draft show. Just to announce this publicly, we're not going to have an NBA draft show this week. I want to figure out how to do that. Like maybe it's like there's a chance it goes behind the Substack. There's a chance that we do it like once every 2 weeks here. I'm not totally sure yet. I'm still trying to figure out format. I'm still trying to figure out how we go about it, kind of everything there. Want to just be very transparent with the audience. No draft show this week. Going to be 2 shows. We're going to do, this show, the takeaway show, and then the typical Friday show. If there's a trade in the middle of the week, we'll obviously go live for that and we'll talk about that as well. So that's the plan as of right now, at least for this week. Speaking of that, the Substack, GameTheorySamV.substack.com, GameTheorySamV.substack.com. I'm going to do Thomas Houck for tomorrow. I think he might be the only lottery pick that we haven't done on the Substack so far. So I wanted to make sure that we got Houck in at some point. He had a monster game against Georgia like a week ago. And I felt like that would be a really, really fun one to break down because like I think that he did something statistically that literally nobody else has done this year with like 21, 15, 3, 3, and 4 or something against a pretty good team with Georgia. So I want to talk about that one, break that one down. GameTheorySamV.substack.com. That is the best place to get film breakdowns on the internet. I think that is accurate. I think that is true. And you will get them for college players. You will get them sometimes for NBA players that Bryce and I are just kind of checking out here and there. And I'm excited to, kind of dive back in and start recording those basically as soon as we're done here. So that will be good.
It's funny. I almost did Houck on that Friday. And as soon as I had it up in Synergy, ready to start clipping. And then I got a message. I had to get some work on something else that I do in this realm of life. And I had to dive right into that immediately. So ended up breaking down some other film that wasn't for the Substack, but really interesting player. I caught bits and pieces of the games on Saturday, and what I watched of Florida, that dude plays so hard. And obviously I knew this anyway, but like he just played so hard just in those minutes. They played Tennessee, so got to see him go kind of not one-on-one, but him and Nate Amons like guarded each other at times on both ends of the court. So that was good. The game I turned on this morning was the North Carolina Wake Forest game. That's the one I wanted to watch some more. Caleb Wilson. Henry Vesar is a guy that's really interesting. He had a really good game, knocked down 2 stretch 3-pointers that was fun, hand activity on defense, and then also Juke Harris for Wake Forest. I wanted to get my second watch of him in a game where he had big numbers as well.
Yeah, I might do that one up later today. Maybe I'll do Vesar for the site, for the Substack site. That could be fun, actually, now that I think about it. So
I like him. He's good.
He's definitely good. I think he's something. So, okay. Let's get into it and let's start. First takeaway is just going to be the Ja Morant trade market. So, over the weekend, we got news that for the first time since he has been in Memphis, the Grizzlies are considering any opportunities that could involve trading Ja Morant. So, that could be, for not a great price, given where his, value would seem to be right now. Maybe it's for a slightly better price than what we expect. But just queuing this up real quick. The Memphis Grizzlies are entertaining offers to potentially move 2-time All-Star Ja Morant ahead of the February 5th trade deadline. Sources told ESPN, that is according to Shams Charania. Multiple teams are pursuing Morant in trade talks, and rival executives believe the Grizzlies prioritize draft picks and young players in return, sources said. This is the first time the Grizzlies have engaged other teams in trades for Morant, who was the number 2 pick in the 2019 NBA draft. So, interesting timing here. Obviously, Morant is not in the middle of a great season. I would say he's actually in the middle of his worst season since he has been in the NBA, frankly. And it does just feel like it's time. I would argue that it's kind of been time for them to move on from Ja Morant at a certain point. Where are you on this before we start to talk about potential places he could go, things like that? Is there something that stands out to you about the timing of this, Ja Morant being on the market, everything like that?
I mean, my initial reaction, I assume I'm not alone in this, was like, if they're okay, we don't want to go down that path. My initial reaction is like, I don't think they're getting young talent and picks, like plural and stuff like that. Like, I don't think that's going to be the market. But so that was my initial reaction. My next reaction is like, yes, let's move on. Let's go. I don't think Jaren Jackson Jr. is the number 1 option on a title contender, face of your franchise. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is really good. He's shown some of the stuff offensively he can do. We know what he is defensively. I think he's a great number 2 in this league. Cedric Coward, I don't know. I don't know what kind of ceiling we want to put on that dude right now, who looks like he is at least a really, really good wing. Your guy Spencer has been good. Zach Edey, they have a lot of really good pieces. I think I'm okay with Memphis just saying, like, we've tried this. It's not going to work. We move Bane. Let's move Morant. And I'm not saying you build around these guys, but let's move forward with the Jaren Jackson Jr., Jalen Wells, Cedric Coward, to lesser extent, Cam Spencer's, whatever, Zach Edey's, wherever
obviously,
those guys.
Edey's he's a big piece of this.
Wherever those guys fall in the hierarchy for people, like whatever. But let's move forward with that. With I think priority 1 being, let's quickly go find our number 1 option, Sam, because not all of those players, they're all mid-20s, lower 20s. So you have time. I wouldn't want to waste too much of that. So I am fine with Memphis deciding we're ready to be out of the Ja Morant business. We're ready to move this thing forward with this other collection of players. I'm supportive of that decision.
Look, it's easy for me to say that I think this is probably a year too late, to be honest. And I think that they should have done this probably, at the trade deadline last year, last offseason, something like that. Morant obviously has like an immense connection with the city of Memphis. The city of Memphis loves him. The city of Memphis, I want to go to bat for that NBA market for a second, because I know some people have tried to use this as a, way to be like, oh, they need to move the NBA out of Memphis. It's not going great there, everything like that. Get out of here. Like the Memphis market, do you see how that market connects to its guys? when they're good. Your Tony Allens, your Zach Randolphs, your Marc Gasols, your Mike Conleys. Then you move into this era that fan base loved Dylan Brooks for a long time. Obviously, Desmond Bane was an incredible connection, but I think that there's been like no greater connection than with Ja Morant. And that fan base does an amazing job of getting behind their guys. And I think that because they got behind Morant in such a significant way, that it probably made this a little bit harder to get rid of him. And I think that that fan base connection is a very real, important factor when going through this thing. But also, it was probably time a little while ago here. Now, the question is what they can get for Ja Morant on the market. And I think that it's not going to be what people want it to be in Memphis. I think they're expecting, I don't know if they're expecting like the value they got for Desmond Bane necessarily, but I think they might be expecting just like a little bit less than that. I think that they could the thing that makes the most sense to me, when you look at what Atlanta got for Trae Young, Atlanta basically just got expiring money in Corey Kispert, right? They didn't have to add picks. They didn't have to do anything like that, but it was just a deal where they got Trae Young off of the roster. I think that Memphis will likely be willing to take back some bad money in this deal in order to bring in more assets. If only because we've seen them do that recently. Like we saw them do that with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, where I would imagine that a part of the reason they got 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane is because one of those picks for Desmond Bane, maybe 2, honestly, was to take the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope contract off of Orlando's hands, because that was a deal that was 40 plus million underwater, I would guess at that point, given what he gave to Orlando the year before. I would guess that we see something similar here, where they're willing to take back some bad money in order to get more assets and continue to build younger players through the draft, everything like that. Like this is a team that has had about as much success through the NBA draft as we've seen as they've been building their team. You know, you can look at the Morants and Jaren Jacksons at the top. They hit both of those picks. That's great. But you hit Desmond Bane, you hit Santi Aldama at 30, you hit Jalen Wells at 39, you hit Cedric Howard at 9 in the lottery. It feels like you hit Zach Edey at 9 in the lottery, as long as he stays healthy, it feels like. Then they drilled Cam Spencer in the second round. I think Vince Williams has given them pretty good value for a second round pick, right? Whatever GG Jackson is, that feels like something of a win. Brandon Clark was quite good up until the injuries later in the first round, right? So like, yes, Jake LaRavia is another one where they just made a mistake and shouldn't have ever declined the team or the team option on the 4th year of the rookie scale deal. But I think this is a team that has had an immense amount of success in the NBA draft. And I would expect them to take back bad money in order to trust themselves and go get interesting players.
I think it's important to compare at least a little bit Morant and Trae, just because I think that's what everybody's going to do as well, because of what, I mean, you did it right there off the top. So I think the first thing is Morant has an extra year on his deal. Correct. Trae has the rest of this year, just like Morant, obviously. Then Trae has a player option for 26-27. Morant is locked in for 26-27 and 27-28. It is a little bit less. I guess I should say a little bit more than a little. I think Trae's is at 49. That player option, Morant's is at 42, and then right under 45. The other thing I will say about Morant is, you know, going back to 21-22 when he made all NBA, averaged 27 a game, he has just the raw numbers, and this is then, you know, really shown up this year, have decreased every year. Now, obviously, there's injuries as part of that. He had a season where he only played 9 games. But, I mean, the points per game have trickled down every year. The 3-point percentage has trickled down every year. Even the assists, like, have either stayed the same or trickled down a little bit. I'm not saying he's on the downward trend of his career. I'm just saying, you know, maybe at his peak, I don't know whose peak was better between him and Trae Young, but we haven't.
I would I would say I think his peak was better than Trey. I know the numbers don't bear that out. I feel like because of his ability to slot into a useful defense, like their defense has been good the entire time he's been there.
Sure.
Right. Whereas Trey, it's been yo-yoed up and down and mostly down. I think the fact that Ja can at least like slot into, I'm not going to make the argument Ja is like a plus defender by any stretch of the imagination, but he's at least proven in a way that Trey hasn't, that he can slot into a good defense.
Yeah. And so like that was probably going to be my raw answer as well, without thinking about it too much, that like just true peak ceiling, whatever, at one point, maybe it was Ja. But
I'll say this though too about Ja versus Trey. Trey's ceiling was for way longer. Like Ja's ceiling was for 2 years. That's it. Like you could maybe say that like there were moments like game 3 against Oklahoma City last year where he kind of rose back to that point, but it's 2022 and 2023. Like that is the Ja Morant ceiling, right? The other 2 things worth noting about Morant here, and like it's worth doing like a quick scout on what Morant is right now.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I think this is important because I think the passing aspect of Trey's game compared to the passing, like I think comparing who they are as players and how they facilitate offense is important, because that's why maybe Ja can fit into context that Trey can't, or vice versa.
So last year, Morant had the goofy Noah LaRoche offense where you and I really like enjoy watching that offense.
Yeah.
We think it's like pretty fun.
It's for us. Yeah.
I don't know that it's actually proven to be all that effective yet in the NBA. Miami right now, I believe, is 20th in offensive rating.
I was about to look it up, and I saw a tweet about them running more ball screens in their recent game. And so I need to check a Miami game and really deep dive soon. I think they play Oklahoma City tonight, so that'll be a good one.
Yeah. So like last year, from March 5th onward, right? Ja Morant averaged 29.8 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 1.2 steals, shooting 50, 35, 80. Like, I'm not sure if people like totally remember how good Ja was late in the year last year. Early in the year, because there was all that like goofy stuff where they were trying to figure out, okay, what is the offense? What is this? Ja was kind of in and out of the lineup as well. There's one other like crazy statistic that I want to bring up here in a second. It felt more complicated, but once they got back to doing what Morant does well, which is play more ball screens, get into those actions, continue to play aggressively, and allow him to be like the primary decision maker, I thought he looked every bit the part of what we've expected him to look like previously, right? So that piece I think is really important to bring it up. And I'm not sure enough people have done that in discussing Morant. Like they've just talked about the fact that the shooting has been a mess and everything, and it has been. Like he's been maybe the worst jump shooter in the league this year, frankly. But there were moments last year where he got back to like pretty close to his best over that little March 5th onward stretch. Now, Bryce, Ja Morant has not played more than 61 games in a season.
Yeah.
Since 2021 or 2020-21, right? He also hasn't played more than 6 consecutive games.
I saw this yesterday.
Since 2023. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's honestly pretty crazy. So there's a real injury question here, I think, that is genuine and real and needs to be discussed, like when discussing his value. Here's the other like main piece of it though. Because of the contract value, they don't have to move him now, is the reality. People will say that like, oh, like he can make it really hard on them. He can be miserable to be around. He can, you know, on the bench, like he looks, like very like sad, and like he'll like put his hood up and all that's like he'll, he could try to make it hard. I don't think they're going to care. I don't think it's an organization that will really be worried about that if he tries to. That's just kind of my read on it just from the way they've handled other situations in the past, not from any inside information or anything. And I think that they will likely be willing to take back bad money. So I think that in terms of like draft capital, asset capital, whatever you want to call it, I think he will go for more than Trae Young did on the market. Like I feel pretty good about that. I don't think they're going to get more than like semi-distressed prospect and a first round pick. And the only way that happens is if they also take back bad money. Like I think that someone would probably do Ja Morant in a similar deal to what Trae Young got, right? But I think that the Grizzlies will probably try to structure it in a way that allows them to maximize asset capital going back. And that involves them taking back money that is probably not advantageous to take back.
Yeah, I just want to touch real quick before we get into that stuff on the passing, because I did want to make that point as well. Just looking back through notes, a recent game against the Wizards, like sick eye manipulation in transition to get Cowher to catch and finish. Multiple examples of him throwing live dribble passes with his left hand, just doing, a game earlier in the year again. And it's not always the best. Like this one is against the Jazz. So like not a ringing endorsement in terms of the two competition, but, generating paint touches, made nice passes and creations, like all of those things. Like I do think he can run offense and create offense in that way. I do think it's important though to bring up that becomes more limited when you're not making jump shots. They don't respect your 3-pointer. Correct. And whether it's he's lost a little bit of athleticism, whether it's whatever, even when you are getting to the rim, you're not finishing at the rate that we were accustomed to seeing from John.
Can I talk about that real quick?
Yeah, of course.
I think that like he's still lightning quick.
I agree
like
with
it's not the level to where it was when he was like 22 or whatever, or 21. He's still really fast. Like I'm not worried about him like having lost like a significant step. He is probably like a half step slower than what he was like at his absolute peak, but he still has like real athletic juice, which is why I think to me, if I was another team, I think there's let me rephrase. If I was another team, I probably would not want Ja Morant on my team because I just don't like small guards. And that's like my thing that I don't really want whenever I'm building a team. But I think there are enough teams out there that I can see trying this and going for it and seeing where it lands, because I can see them going, hey, there's this guy who is still lightning fast. We just have to figure out what's going on with the jumper. Is this just like a slow start to a year that's been interrupted by injury where he's dealt with the, what is it? It's a calf strain like throughout the course of the season. And maybe as soon as that gets back, it'll be fine. Or like, do we have to make mechanical adjustments? Is he willing to work on mechanical adjustments? What kind of buy-in are we going to get there from him? Will he like see his own basketball mortality potentially getting moved from a place that he seemingly like publicly seemed to want to stay throughout the course of his entire career? Right. So I think all of those things are really important to discuss in this as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, just looking at the deal, he doesn't have to go somewhere and be that team's best player on this contract, right? Like this is 25% of the cap. I mean, every team's cap situation is a little bit different, but it's not like he's at the 30% or anything like that where he needs to be one of your 2 or 3 best players, but he doesn't have to be the guy. Now, the question is, does his style of play and all of that, does it fit, right? Like, or does he have to have, regardless of the contract and the numbers and everything else, because of how he plays, can he, who is the number one option and how do they play together?
Yeah.
So that's where I think each team kind of construct and fit. He's one of those guys, and we get into this all the time with guys. He's not the only one where there's some guys that just fit seamlessly. Like you pretty much take this player, put him wherever, and you're going to make it work. He's one of those where the style of play, like if we're going to start getting into it, like I see people bring up Miami all the time. And to what you said earlier, I'm like, he's not gonna. Is he going to be happy playing in Miami in the offense that he just didn't enjoy playing in?
Yeah. So like I brought up, let's move to like what the market could look like, right?
Sure.
Like what teams could try to do this. Miami, I think, is one because Miami could look at him as like a distressed asset where they wouldn't have to give up their best young players, which could theoretically like keep them in the Giannis Antetokounmpo sweepstakes and potentially allow them to get, a really interesting lead guard to play within a scheme. If I was Miami and the price point was low enough, I might try this. I would want to make sure my intel was like completely on point in regard to the way that he would react, like being in Miami and everything. But I would probably be willing to go for this if only because I think that the price point would not be crazy. They have, the Terry Rozier money, which I'm sure they'd be ecstatic to get off of if possible. They have the Fontecchio money, that those two make the money work financially. And here's the other thing too. Like if you're going to continue down the road of this Noah LaRoche based offense, Kasparis doesn't make sense in that offense. Like he's a guy that needs ball screens. He's a guy that needs like some separation to be able to attack, and he can't do it on his own. So like LaRoche does, like that offense, like for as much as it doesn't work for Ja Morant, it also doesn't work for the guy that they took in the first round this year. So you could say, like, if you're Miami, what's the incentive there to move one? Like if you're going to get Ja Morant, you might want to keep Kasparis, right? If you're going to get a point guard, and I guess the Kasparis could play with Ja, like I think that could be okay. It might not be great on defense, but that could theoretically work, I think, in some respect. So maybe it's like Pele Larson or something like that instead of Ja Morant. But like I think instead of Kasparis, I think Pele is probably better than Kasparis, frankly. I don't know that I'd be excited about giving up Pele Larson, but like if they could do Kasparis in a first and then just like expiring money, they would still have all of Hero, Kalel Ware, Jaime Jaquez,
Bam.
Yeah. Well, not even Powell. I'm talking about just like the young guys. To some extent, Drew Smith, Pele Larson, Nikola Jovic, like they can go offer Milwaukee, like all those guys still for Giannis, in addition to, I think, 2 picks they'd be able to offer next summer if they had them available. That's like not a bad offer for Giannis still. If Giannis like really wanted to push his case to try to get to Miami, right? So, and if you told me that the Miami Heat are Ja Morant, Bam Adebayo, who's kind of becoming like a bit of a 3-point shooter this year, it feels like, and Giannis, that's kind of an interesting core, especially if they can keep Norman Powell in free agency, right? So that actually kind of works to me as the setup move for a potential Giannis move, if Giannis was willing to try to push the issue to get to Miami.
Sure. I would have to, I didn't think we were going to the Ja Morant and Giannis boat. I'd have to workshop a little bit more whether I like Ja and Giannis together. I think having Giannis, I don't know that I need Ja if I'm getting Giannis.
I would want a good high-level point guard creator, I think, with Giannis. But I'm like totally changing. Here's the thing. If I'm doing this, I'm like totally changing my offense.
No, this is it. You have to, the offense stuff is definitely going to be different now.
Yeah. But again, like I am of the opinion that I'm not sure that the Noah LaRoche like scheme, with how up tempo it is, with very few ball screens, everything like that. Like, I don't know if NBA guys love playing in it. And I don't know that it totally works in the NBA in the way that we want it to.
Well, and the other thing is, you've always said, you said this back to whenever it was, starting in Memphis. Again, I love watching it just because it's like fun.
So do I.
It's great to be able to tell people like, no, that every NBA team doesn't play the same, like insert Miami Heat. But I do wonder in a series, if a team, because there's so much off-ball movement to it that may be a little bit different than what a team is used to night out and night in and night out in the NBA. If you get into a playoff series and you can really scout it, if you are able to just really lock in off the ball and take away some of the relocations and the closeouts they get to attack. And if you can really scheme up and just make sure you're locked in, and really take things away. That's why I want them to get in the playoffs, because I want them to run it all year and in the playoffs, because I want to see what it looks like against a team that's fully locked in against it.
The team that immediately made sense to me, for what it's worth, whenever I saw that Morant wanted out, was Toronto. Because again, like the reason for this is that they have this Emmanuel Quickly money.
Yep.
That they could get off of in this deal. The deal that I had the idea of was like Emmanuel Quickly, Jacoby Walter, like Ochai Agbaji, a 2026 first round pick, right? Because what that deal does, it like accomplishes a crazy amount of goals for Toronto. It gets off the Quickly money. I would argue the Quickly deal is like 50 million underwater. I think Emmanuel Quickly is a good player. He's just worth like 15 to 20 million a year, not 32 million a year, unfortunately. So it's, somewhere between 39 and, $50 million underwater, depending on what you think Quickly is worth. So they get off of the extra year, because Quickly has 3 years left after this one. Morant has 2. So you get off the extra year of $32.5 million. If the experiment doesn't work with Morant, then his contract becomes an expiring contract in the summer of 2027. So they can look to move that and continue to, try and chase a star. If it does work and you have him, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, you still have RJ Barrett, you can then use the Barrett money to go out and try to get another star with those guys, if you want to, or the Brandon Ingram money, however you want to look at it. But the Barrett money becomes expiring this summer.
Yeah.
Which means I think that that'll actually be pretty easy to move if they want to try and go chase another star. Right. So I think that they would have this summer, if they move the 2026 pick, a full complement of picks to move for another star in addition to that. So again, I think the Morant deal would actually be an interesting deal to set up to go get another star.
Well,
they're kind of my idea.
Depending on what happens with Jakob Poeltl, and that's where things get dicey. There is that contract is looking a little bit rough right now. I know.
Well, that deal looks quite bad, I think.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
So to your point, also, I mean, a lot of these guys would come off about the same time if you made this deal. Like you said, Barrett has one more year. BI's is the same length as Morant, other than BI has a player option, but same amount of time. So you would kind of time some of this stuff. My initial reaction is, again, you're still playing into, we don't have the number one option. I love Scotty Barnes. I think he's an incredible two-way player. I think we've sung Scotty Barnes praises on this podcast all year, especially on the defensive end. I think Brandon Ingram's having an incredible year. I watched the Raptors play, and I'm like, I don't know that I think he's the driving force of that offense right now, just because the way he's scoring the basketball. I kind of like his shot diet. That's always sometimes been my concern with him. Barrett's been good when he's been there. So I find myself being interested. I do think it would have to be the setup move, because the 5 position just isn't good enough. As much as I love Mamu Kelishvili, Colin Murray-Boyles had an awesome game the other day whenever I watched. I just don't think it's quite good enough. And I still don't know that maybe you can piece it together, like the combination of Morant and BI offensively with Barnes defensively. If you can give me a center to believe in, maybe that gets you there. That's kind of interesting. And where you're only giving up 1 first round pick to get off the Quickly money, which, like we talked about, you're at least shrinking that money with Morant.
Right.
And only a couple young wings, when you have a plethora of young wings that none of them are standing out anyway. This one is kind of interesting to me. I would be I'd tune in to watch that, and you let Morant facilitate offense for Scotty, for BI, for RJ. Sign me up for Morant and Scotty Barnes pick and roll stuff with, I could be into this a little bit. I don't think it catapults them. But if it's the move to the next move,
right.
I like that plan. If it's the move, I don't think it moves the needle that much.
That's my thing. I think it sets them up better to make the next move, is why I would consider doing this. I would need so much more intel on how Morant would go in Toronto and what buy-in would be, everything like that. But the theory of the move before the move and going to get Morant is kind of interesting to me. Also worth noting, they're like $1 million over the tax. That deal would get them under the tax as well. But they have like myriad ways they can do that before the deadline as well. And just beyond that, like it really increases their upside to go get John Morant.
Sure.
Just like a few other teams that like could theoretically do this. The Clippers, I think, are going to be in the market for any star that potentially comes available. Any upside swing that they can make. They have all the expiring money in the world with John Collins, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Kobe Brown. Like that would be pretty easy, I think, to facilitate. The Sacramento Kings, look, like I don't think they should do this. I want to be so clear that I think this is a bad idea. But like they have the DeMar money, they have the Levine money, they have the Dennis Schroeder money. Like, is there a world where you could do something like DeMar DeRozan, Dennis Schroeder, Devin Carter, and like a pick or two or something? Like, I don't, that's so much bad money that you're getting off of. But maybe they want that like star point guard back to play with Domantas Sabonis, right? Like they think that that's their ticket in, the speedy guard that, plays somewhat similar, not totally similarly, stylistically to De'Aaron Fox, right? Like, I think this is a bad idea. I think this is rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, and like none of this would make sense. I wonder if they at least look at it. I'm just saying.
So I listened to a podcast the other day, and I truly apologize. I can't remember who it was talking about. It was somebody that covers the Kings somewhat close. And I was so excited to hear them say, like, Sacramento knows that they need to go into a rebuild and there's going to be tough decisions and tough times and stuff like that. Like, this would just be the complete opposite of anything like that. So, like, I just...
For what it's worth, what I gather is, like, they had no interest in Trae Young. Now, like, Ja is signed for the extra year on top without the player option. So, like, maybe that would change because of that. I don't know. But I do know that they did not have interest in Trae.
Yeah. Can I throw out a few teams at you?
Please.
So Minnesota is one that I see people bring up. Yeah. Phoenix is one and then Dallas. So 3 West teams, all in different divisions: Minnesota, Phoenix, Dallas.
Okay, so Minnesota, to facilitate this deal, would either have to move Julius Randle or they would have to move Naz Reid, Mike Conley, Rob Dillingham, and one of the team's like minimum guys, right? 4-for-1 deals are really hard to start in the middle of the season. And I just don't think that they're like a better team if they move Julius Randle for Ja Morant, frankly. Like they might, if it's better, it's incremental, and like the level to which they've figured out how to play together. I don't think that makes them a better team this year. I don't know that this makes them better enough, is my point immediately, given everything they would have to give up in order to get Morant. So I'm not a huge fan. I also don't like Rob Dillingham does not feel very Memphis Grizzlies-y to me in terms of the types of players that this front office has valued before, seemingly. Phoenix, the problem with Phoenix is they have no picks they can move, and their only real like value add is Common Maluach. And I think that Memphis is like very committed to Edie, right? So I'm not totally sure, because like the bad money they could theoretically take back is Jalen Green, and sure, I can buy that, but I don't think that there's the enticement there to do that from Phoenix. And the third team you brought up was...
I just said Dallas, and I know people are going to scream Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie Irving's coming off an ACL. Like, can Dallas talk themselves into the longer term play of a Ja Morant, Cooper Flag duo, etc.?
So, like, kind of didn't consider Dallas because of the fact that they still have Kyrie Irving. So is your idea here, like, how do they get to the money, I guess would be my question. Like, would it be like Klay Thompson and Daniel Gafford? Is that kind of your...
Yeah.
Like, You could do like Thompson, Gafford, and Caleb Martin, get you there, but
that's 39.
Yeah, that's right around what Morant makes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that
I was just throwing teams. I was just throwing teams like that. Hey, I never gave like I probably wouldn't. I would have a hard time giving up too much real value.
Yeah.
I think Toronto. I don't love the Miami one. I think the Toronto one as a step into a next step is the best idea I've heard that feels palatable to me so far. I'm not saying there aren't other ones out there. I'm sure there's other deals that people have brought up and teams. I mean, so here's the other one in the Washington vein, and this team is different, but like, is there a Brooklyn idea for Ja Morant in the same way there was Trae Young for the Wizards? I realize they just drafted all of these on-ball guys, but like Ja Morant is more talented than Jaeger on the ball, Trae, or all of that stuff. Like the best thing Jaeger's done is shoot threes so far. And I'm trying to discount him. Like he has done that very, very well. But is there a world where he makes sense in Brooklyn in the same way we felt like Trae made sense for the Wizards?
So, as always, what is the deal here?
So it has to start with Porter Jr., right? Just in terms of the money. Oh,
well, yeah. I'm like trying to think through it like a little bit more because they have like a little bit of wiggle room. Like they could do like Zaire Williams and Haywood Highsmith if they were willing to take on $12 million more dollars, right? That deal actually does work. The man money is quite bad, right? Like that's not a good deal league wide. So maybe they could get a first back from Brooklyn to take back the man money. Something like that. But I just don't, I think Brooklyn is like trying to not do stuff like this is what it feels like to me.
I agree. And I mean, so what? Man's on the books for next year.
He's on the books for 2 more years after this.
I was just trying to figure out like what this would do to their cap space as well. Like if you brought Ja in, like, how would that complicate their cap space this offseason also? So
yeah, it's a good question. For next year, they have just the man money among the Zaire Williams and Haywood Highsmith deals. Zaire is on a team option for next year and the man money. So they would add $24 million to their books.
That doesn't seem like a great idea.
I mean, it would significantly reduce the amount of money that they have to play with in free agency, to take back bad money, everything like that. So the other team here is Milwaukee. Like Milwaukee obviously could theoretically look into deals like this. I think that Kuzma, Porter Jr., and Gary Harris gets them to the necessary number that they need. But if I'm Memphis, I'm asking for either Ryan Rollins or their 2031 first. And I don't know that Memphis wants to, or I don't know that Milwaukee wants to give that up for Ja Morant when Morant is not a guarantee.
And Rollins is on like a ridiculous contract. That thing is sick.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Like I'm not, I don't think I'm giving up Rollins in a Morant deal, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of where it sits. I do think Toronto is the easiest way to sell this. Look, if the Kings really just want to get off of some of these like older vets with the money, I can see a world where something like this is possible. I can see Miami maybe a little bit more cleanly than you do. But I think there are landing spots, is what I would say. I think that I buy what Sham said, that there are teams chasing it.
So I will say this exercise has been good and eye-opening for me, because I think it's easy to just be like, nope. He can't shoot. When you really go through it, there's like, okay, I could see some of these things when you really dive into it.
The big thing that is different here, the two things that are really different here between the Trae Young thing and the Ja Morant thing, is that Atlanta needed to not take back a lot of long-term money in order to keep their flexibility for this summer open. which meant that they couldn't take back like the Quickly deal in Toronto, right? They couldn't take back bad money. So because of that, because they couldn't take back bad money, it limited their take back immediately. The second thing is that because Morant has longer term on his deal, Memphis doesn't have to do anything right now. So they can take this into the summer if they want to and make that work. Okay, let's move on to the first takeaway.
Yeah, so my takeaways all kind of have to do with the deadline. And I picked 3 different teams that I thought would be interesting in very different ways. And was also just a reason to talk about these 3 teams. I think all are also interesting to talk about for different reasons. So we're going to start with the Detroit Pistons. And my question is to you, to most people, it's the top of conversation in my realm of covering this teams is, do they buy super high? Do they buy low? Or do they buy not at all at the deadline when looking at what this team has been this year in the Eastern Conference landscape?
I would want to buy. I will say that. Like, I do want to buy if I'm the Detroit Pistons. I think it really just depends on price point for me. Like, if Michael Porter Jr. is more available than we think at like a reasonable price point, I'm pretty interested in that if I'm them, to be honest. Like, if it's Tobias Harris, something else, and Jaden Ivey, like if they want to take like a flyer on Ivy, maybe it's like Ivy, a first round pick, and Tobias Harris or something for Michael Porter Jr. Like I'm interested in that deal. If it's like 2 firsts for Michael Porter and like I really limit my flexibility to go out and potentially get another star moving forward, I'm probably less interested.
Yeah,
in that deal. So I think like for me, it depends on price point. Like I think that the Anthony Davis thing has passed because of his wrist injury. I was never wildly in on that for them. I mean, if not one of those guys, I do like the idea of going to get another ball handler because unfortunately it just feels like the Ivy thing is, I mean, look, like maybe this is the question, like where are you at on Jaden? Because I think it's been like a little bit better recently, but like I've not loved the tape by and large.
So that's where I think the conversation really stems. And I think everybody would agree that this team, well, I shouldn't say that. Do you still think they need a number 2 option? Because I think there's some Pistons fans who think Jalen Duren can be the number 2 guy.
I think that Jalen Duren can be a great play finisher and can score 20 points in any given game, right?
Yep.
But I think that they need another guy who can create a shot, would be my answer.
My other thing that I would just encourage people to look at is Jalen Duren's splits in November compared to December. And then he's only played 1 game in January thus far. He's dealing with a little something right now. Hopefully we'll be back soon. My only point is not that Jalen Duren was bad in December offensively. He was still fine and had taken a real growth from what we saw earlier in his career, but it wasn't the same level of November when there was like definite all-star, max this guy out type of production. He averaged 16 points.
I was pretty convinced he was going to be an all-star at the start of or like after the first like 25 or so games, and I'm not there now.
Yeah. In December, he averaged 16 points, didn't get to the free throw line as much. His rebounding was down a little bit. Like, again, I'm not trying to like crap on Jalen Duren. He's been awesome this year, but, and he has taken real growth this year. But my point is, I think I would want more sample before I said, you know what? It's a Jalen Duren duo, and that's all we need offensively. Put shooters and defense around them, and we're good to go. I'm not in that camp yet. To answer your original question, Sam, you won't find a bigger Ivy believer, support, or like whatever you want to say, right? Like my argument was always, I think him and Cade Cunningham can play together. I think he can play off the ball. You create zoom actions and opportunities to attack downhill, and the catch and shoot has shown signs and all that. It hasn't been there this year. Nothing that I've seen from Jaden Ivey so far, coming off a real injury, like a real broken leg, but in 23 games where I guess he has a minutes restriction and it really limits how much time he can play still. Like he started, I think, against the Clippers, and he wasn't even close to one of the most impactful players in that game, Sam. And I'm not saying a one game is a great example. I have not seen anything that just says I'm comfortable continuing to wait for this to happen for Jaden Ivey. We still have 4 weeks to see, but so far, I'm not still waiting on him to be the answer to the question of is the number 2 option on the roster?
Well, Bryce, like here's the thing. It doesn't mean that you have to be out on Jaden Ivey long term.
Agreed, which
right?
I am not. Yes.
It just means that you might not trust him coming back from the broken leg this year, right? To say that you're going out and making a move. Now, if you trade him because you're worried about him asking for too much in free agency and everything, like I understand that. And that's a different argument than what I'm about to make. But the reality is that they have to go out and get somebody who can create a shot, I think, in order to at least just cover for this. Now, the second question I have for you is, what have you thought of the Karis LeVert minutes this year? Because that's another critical piece of this. Do you think that can he integrate himself more and more and more as the season goes?
No, I would say no. I am not as down on Karis LeVert as the wider fan base. Like Karis LeVert is Pistons fans. They don't like him. They hate whenever JB plays him. They think he's been awful this year. I disagree and push back to the extent of like, I don't think he's been a negative player for them, but he also hasn't provided the upside scoring and some of the stuff I thought he would. I think he's fine to have off the bench in the rotation, especially in the regular season. I think Pistons fans' worry is that because of the relationship or prior time together, JB is going to overtrust Karis LeVert and play him over guys that, obviously there's a huge Dennis Jenkins part of the fan base and rightfully so. Like Dennis has been awesome. But I don't think any of these names are the answer to the question. And so what I really think the question comes down to is, do you just go get a floor spacer so that Duncan Robinson isn't one of the most important players on this team, which he is because he's the only like true floor spacer? Do you go get a short-term bucket getter, i.e. Zach LaVine, which I don't think they can get to the money, Michael Porter Jr., even if you don't want to extend him, etc.? Or do you go get does Bobby Portis provide enough of just like shot making and a little bit of scoring that's enough that combined with what Cade does with what Jalen Duren does, like who he doesn't have, I don't even care about the specific name. To me, it's really like, what
is the archetype of player?
What does Trajan think the archetype needs to be? Sam Hauser, floor spacer? Trey Murphy, long-term number 2 option? Zach LaVine, short-term number 2 option? Or like, again, like a Bobby Portis, he's going to give us minutes at the 4 type of like round out the roster rotation.
Look, again, if the Pelicans are willing to like really value Jaden Ivey and like some of these other guys that Troy Weaver drafted, like I'm interested in a Trey Murphy deal, very obviously, right? I'm not giving up like 4 unprotected picks or anything for Trey Murphy, but like I'm interested in that for sure. But I don't think they're going to move him. Like that's kind of my read right now. The name that continues to say and scream out to me is there any way that the Kings would just flip Malik Monk for Karis LeVert and say, hey, we're getting 1 less year on this deal than what Malik currently has. The market has borne out that there's apparently not a lot of value with Malik Monk's deal for whatever reason. It's not like Malik has played amazing this year. Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, Malik has looked as good as he has the last couple of years. Like his true shooting percentage, 6% below league average, right? Like he's not crushing it by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that he at least has a chance to tick both of the boxes of being able to shoot and be like a secondary playmaker next to Cade Cunningham,
sure. Yep.
as well as occasionally being able to take over as like, an off the bench microwave scoring option without Cade on the court in a way that I think the Pistons could use.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a year ago, I was screaming for this. I am interested because, listen, you know this, hopefully the listeners know, like I don't report, like that's not what I do, but it seems like maybe there would have been something there when Dennis Schroeder ended up being, signed and traded to Sacramento. And I feel like there was some rumblings that like Detroit didn't want to take Malik Monk back in any sort of version of that. They almost valued the trade exception a little bit more. So it just makes me wonder, like, does Trajan value that? And here's the other thing. Trajan may have said like, hey, we have Jaden Ivey coming back off this broken leg. What are we going to do with Malik Monk whenever we have Jaden Ivey? And, at that time, I can't remember if the Beasley stuff had already happened. The timing of all of that, Beasley's thing may have happened already. Probably would have. But anyway, I just don't know what Trajan would value in terms of Malik. I will also say this, Sam. Everybody immediately throws Tobias Harris into these trades. And it makes sense, right? Because he has a $26 million expiring deal. The one thing I will just say be a little bit careful of, if you're not replacing that archetype, I would like to know what the rotation is. Yes. If you were trading Tobias for, let's just say Levine, it's just the easiest one. I know more money, whatever. But if you're just trading for a wing that can't give you minutes at the 4, that means you're either playing Asar Thompson and Ron Holland a bunch of 4 minutes, which I don't always love, because then that hinders who you can match Asar Thompson up with in a given game, or you're leaning into Isaiah Stewart playing at the 4, which I will hear out. I think defensively that's interesting and, against certain matchups, but I just make sure you have an answer for that whenever you just automatically trade Tobias in some of these. That archetype is one that this team is not flush with. And so I think it's important to have a plan for how you replace those minutes.
I totally agree with that. Like, losing Tobias is like a real value drop. So you need to more than make up for that whenever you're constructing a deal for a team that's trying to win now. The other team that I think could track here is Chicago. Like, if there is a Kobe White deal to be made.
Yeah, that's another good name.
Like, that's probably like shopping at the top of the market, I would say, is if you decide to go do Kobe White. Yeah. And the Bulls have made player for player trades before. Maybe they wouldn't mind going back into the draft and trying to go get another pick, a later first round pick or whatever. But like, is there any Kobe White move that could make sense given this $14 million trade exception that Kobe White fits into? Like, is there a way that the Pistons could throw in their 2026 first and then do like 3 seconds or something for Kobe White, because they have 1 million second round picks moving forward?
Yeah, they so that's what, draft capital wise, Detroit has all of their own and then a plethora of seconds. They have accumulated extra. That is an important point, that they do have the trade exception from the aforementioned Dennis Schroeder move, and White would fit into that. So that is a name that I think is interesting for Detroit. Because
I just want to kind of call out like the number of seconds they have. So they have 3 seconds in 2027. They have, I believe, 2 seconds in 2028. They have 2 in 2029. They have 2 in 2030. They have 3 in 2031. And they have 1 in 2032. So like, significant surplus of second round picks. Like, if a team, and then again, look, like Chicago might want something different for Kobe White. They might think that there's a pick out there with more upside, but if they want just like sheer quality of picks or sheer quantity of like bites at the apple with picks, like Detroit can actually provide that for them.
Yeah. No, I think Kobe White's a really interesting name. And, I don't know, like his contract situation, I think could be looked at either way. Detroit has, Trajan has his hands full this summer because he's got two big decisions to make with Dern and Ivy, and then Asar's extension is eligible as well. And so then you add Kobe White and his unrestricted free agency to the mix, and you just convolute that even more. But I guess those would be tomorrow's problems trying to get through this year. I do think for me, they have to do something. I don't think you can go into a playoff run where you have a real chance to win the Eastern Conference. As we sit here right now, you have one of the best players in the conference. You're having the best season up to this point. You can not go into the playoffs with Duncan Robinson as your only legit floor spacer that teams are absolutely going to respect, possession in, possession out. And your second scorer being Jalen Duren in his first year, averaging more than, he averaged 13.8 points in 23-24. And again, this is going to sound like I'm throwing shade at JD. It is not. I think he's been awesome and has shown real growth. I think that's a miscalculation to go into a playoff series with those two caveats on the offensive end. I think you at least have to bring in some more shooting, floor spacing, or bring in a guy for some scoring, even if it is truly just I still kind of like the idea of CJ McCollum, Sam, because it's exactly what that is. That's an expiring deal. We're going to let him score, and that's it.
They have no way to get to the money.
That is kind of the issue, which is why, I think the Jaden Ivey contract thing gets really interesting, because I think one thing I've learned is you need to have some Tobias Harris type contracts on your books to go make some of the moves that you need to make at times. I think he would make a lot of sense for them. But yeah, the only way to get there is Tobias, or you're just putting together contracts that you're not starting that deal with Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah. No, the other thing I want to bring up here.
Yeah, Karras and somebody else doesn't even get you there. Yeah.
And again, the Hawks aren't going to want Karras because of the money for next year. So that doesn't work. So you have to make it worth their while. And the way you do that is with Holland or Asar or Jaden Ivey.
And that's not what we're talking about here.
That's not what we're talking about. So the other thing I want to bring up here is just financially, right? They are 19 million from the tax. Yeah. So they have the ability to use this full trade exception, this full $14 million trade exception. I would venture that they probably try to stick in that number.
Yeah.
Right. Is there a way that you can do Kobe White within that trade exception? Maybe it's Ayo Dosunmu within the trade exception.
He's so good,
maybe it's somebody like that. But one of those two guys, to me, is what makes the most sense for them. I would honestly probably lean toward Kobe because I would want the offensive firepower. And I think that I have enough defensive infrastructure to totally make that work. And I do think that Kobe just has a little bit more juice offensively than what Ayo does, as good as Ayo is, and is honestly, Ayo's mentality and the way he plays probably fits a little bit better with this team and with what JB wants. But I think that from a complementary skill set perspective, it would be more reminiscent of the Dennis Schroeder kind of addition from last year, where he was able to add real scoring juice in a way that this team requires. And I know Ayo's shooting 45% from three this year on 4.1 attempts per game. He was at 32% last year. He was at 40 the year before. He was at 31% in 2022-23. It just yo-yos a little bit more than what I would feel comfortable with from a shooting perspective in a playoff series. Whereas look, I know Kobe White's shooting 31% from three this year, but Kobe White's a shooter. You know what I mean? He's going to be fine knocking down shots.
I just want to finish on a point you just made. I do think a lot of these names are options because the defensive infrastructure is so strong. I am of the mind that this team can insulate they can't insulate the worst defender in the league, but they're doing a good job of insulating Duncan Robinson right now. They have the second best defense in the NBA. Duncan Robinson has played the second most minutes on this team. And Duncan's he has a little bit of size, and just the fact that he plays hard and knows where to be that's enough, along with the high level defenders of Asar Thompson and Isaiah Stewart and the quality defenders that are then littered throughout the roster. Like, I think they can insulate a guy who's just like not catastrophic defensively, because you don't need to play him with Duncan Robinson. You bring in Kobe White, then you only need Duncan Robinson to play when Kobe's not on the court. You know what I mean? Because Kobe is playing the Duncan Robinson role. So I do think that their defensive infrastructure allows their optionality of who they can bring in.
I think that's right. Okay. My question for you is, do you want to finish up the trade stuff and then go to like the fun basketball stuff and just do your takeaways? Or do we want to bounce back and forth between like basketball and then trades?
I thought all trades, but I think it's actually better if we bounce back and forth. Let's ping pong here.
Okay. So my second takeaway today is going to the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's that Rudy Gobert remains just still so ridiculous and so undervalued league wide. And I thought that like the best moment that kind of insulated this in my mind and like said this to me in my mind was he over the weekend had made 19 straight field goal attempts. So just like pure efficiency, overall play, awesome basketball. Make 19 shots in a row in the NBA, even though most of them are right at the rim, right? On the 20th one, he gets the ball at like the free throw line and takes one of the ugliest right-hand floaters I think I've ever seen. There's a video that came out after where Donovan Mitchell was like kind of messing with him because they played forever. And he was like, yeah, that floater didn't look confident. That didn't look great. And Rudy was like, yeah, you're right. Like I wasn't super confident in that one. But I think everyone saw the floater and was like, what is this? Right. And they forget that he had made 19 shots in a row before that. That is absurd. And I think it was just such a great encapsulation of how it doesn't always look pretty with Rudy, but God damn, is it effective. Every single time this guy's on the court, it is remarkably effective basketball. Rudy Gobert this year has played 1,200 minutes. They've had 600 minutes with him off of the court. They are a +10 when he is on the court. They are dead neutral when he is off the court. And it is literally all defense. When he is on the court, they have a 108.1 defensive rating. That is absurd. Like that would very clearly be second in the league. They are 9th overall in defense right now, largely because of Rudy. Do you know what their defensive rating is when Rudy leaves the court?
118.
It's 119.6. They would be 26th in the NBA when Rudy is off the court. So they go from being the second best defense in the league when he's on the court to the 26th best defense in the league when he's off the court. Part of that's like Naz Reid's not a great defender, right? They play some Randall Reid minutes there in those minutes. Not ideal, obviously, but he's just such a monster on the interior. He still has it. And like, this is such a credit to his like work ethic. And this is a thing I've talked about with him for years. And like, this is how I ended up missing on him in the draft is like, I didn't know how like crazy competitive and how high end his work ethic was whenever he entered the draft. Cause I was 22 or 23 when I was doing this then. But if you talk to people around the league, like he is one of like the truly elite workers. Like there's a reason that he can play 36 minutes a night and it not really be an issue for him. It's because he is unbelievably well conditioned and unbelievably strong and able for that like physical frame to deal with like the bumps and bruises of the NBA while still being like skinny enough to get up and down the court and like thin enough to be able to have the kind of endurance that is required to play those heavy minute loads. Right.
Yeah.
And look, it's as much as on us. Like we didn't have Rudy all defense at the 20 game mark. Honestly, I think we might have just been wrong about that, but these these last like 20 games to me have really showcased, as much as anything, how unbelievable he still is and what his impact is whenever he's on the court defensively for the Minnesota Timberwolves. This guy is, I believe, like about to turn 30, or no, he still hasn't turned 34 until June, but he is 33. Like, this is when guys start to decline, and he's just not declining at all. And on top of it, I would argue, I don't know how much you've watched them, but like, he's kind of getting better on offense. Like, there have been some little flash play moments where he's actually like been able to dribble a little bit more than what I've seen previously. Like, he had one play where he like gathered into a Euro step from like the top of probably from like just above the break on the wing and like scored and finished at the rim. His footwork just looks way cleaner in these moments where he plays in like short rolls where teams blitz Anthony Edwards off of his screens. Look, again, like, I'm not going to sit here and overstate what Rudy Gobert is offensively, but I think that he's actually like starting to develop like more counters to how defenses play him. And it's just like, he keeps adding. Like, it's such an immense credit to him that he continues to be this dominant on the court offensively, continues to be an unbelievable screener, and continues to be this like unselfish superstar league wide. Like, he's still, in terms of effectiveness, probably one of the 30 most effective players in the NBA at this point, is the reality. And like, I get it that people don't want to give it to him, but he just is.
Yeah, I think one thing that I haven't noticed, I hadn't really looked at it till you brought it up. One thing, like just his physical build, right? Like, just you look at him and it is this intersection of just obviously size, but also strength, but not just like super bulky, or like, he just looks very fit. But talking about the minutes per game, this is a 7-footer that is averaged over 30 minutes per game for his entire career. And that's including 45 games his rookie year where he only averaged 9.6. You know what I mean? So like, that's weighing it down just a little bit. It's like, it's 32 and a half if you take out his first 2 years of his career. So over those next, he's played almost 750 games over those next, what is it? 2, 4, 6, 8, like 11 years, 32 and a half minutes a night. He's only played less than 66 games once since like 60 plus games almost every year. You know, like, he played 70
plus games in every year in Minnesota so far. He's on track for that as well.
That's great. Like, just the total minutes played, like all of these years of 2,000 plus minutes played, and he's on track to do it again this year. I'm always pretty critical of his offense. He is leading the league in field goal percentage right now. It's on very low volume, obviously, but there's something to be said for just like knowing your role and only taking the shots that you're supposed to take. You mentioned the screen setting. He is averaging almost 4 offensive rebounds per game. And then the defense. Like, I tried to look back and justify not having him somewhere on the all defense, and I just don't know that I do. He's still
he should be first team all defense.
Yeah.
Like, having like really dug into their tape like this week, he should be first team all defense.
I agree.
He's awesome.
I was trying to figure out why, like, I don't even know that either of us really brought it up and had an argument about it at the quarter of the season. And obviously there are misses, right? Like, we miss it sometimes, but I think it's easy to point like to the defensive rim percentage and the blocks and all of that. I watched this Cavaliers game recently. Not the one with all the points, but not the most recent one, but one before that would have been on. No, they must have played back to back or something.
They did play back to back.
Okay, so I watched the first one. First possession of the game, he just deflects a pass off the ball, and it doesn't end up a turnover. Doesn't show up in the box score, but like Darius Garland or somebody was wide open on the weak side, and Gobert's just aware, uses his size, his length to deflect the pass, and it takes away a wide open catch and shoot. You see guys just turning away shot attempts in terms of like, nope, I'm not even going to take that. And so it's just really impressive how he changes the thought process of an offensive player. And while there are other guys in the league that do that, there's not a ton of them, right? Like Wembanyama does that. Chet probably does that to an extent. But I would say there's probably less than 10 players where you can just wholeheartedly say that multiple times throughout a game, they completely change the decision-making process of the offensive player around the rim. And he's absolutely one of those guys.
No, he's 100% one of those guys. This year, opponents are shooting 50.5% at the rim against him on his shots that he contests. Like you said, he's shooting 72.4% this season. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. When I watch him, I'm just like, this is what an all defense guy looks like. This is what this does. This is what these guys do. They completely change the geometry and the calculus of what opposing teams are trying to do. And he continues to do that. Like, I thought there was a chance his like mobility would slow down as he got older. It hasn't. Like, he's still just as mobile as he was like when he was in Utah, frankly. His understanding of how to play in drop-in ball screens continues to like get better, I would argue. Like, I think he's gotten even a little bit better this year, like playing a little bit higher sometimes at the level, like not quite at the level, but like a little bit closer to the level when he has to. Like, he is so good, man.
Yeah.
It kind of boggles my mind that he is about to turn 34 in June. He's truly just an all-time defensive player, is the reality. Like, he should be in the mix for defensive player of the year right now, is the it just is. And I get it that there are worries about the way that it holds up in the playoffs, but they've made the conference finals the last 2 years with him playing a huge part. And there are probably schemes that can take advantage of what he does, but they are a precious few. And man, I just am somewhat blown away by what he brings on a night-to-night basis still in the NBA. It is like, you look at somebody like Clint Capella, who in theory would be a contemporary of his, right? Like, Clint has a couple of potential top 15 all defense team, never made an all defense team, but like right around there. It's just like a level below Rudy, though, in terms of what he was as a player. His minute load has gone down every year since 2019.
Yeah.
Every single season. Like, he played 33 minutes a night in 2019, 32 in 2020, 30 in 2021, 27 in 2022, 26 in 2023, 25 in 2024, 21 in 2025. Those are all years as starters. And now he's at 11 minutes per game. And he isn't even as old as Rudy is. He's 31. Like, it's just kind of crazy to look at the contemporaries of Rudy around the league and how they, just continue to diminish in terms of minute loads. Jakob Poeltl, he's 30, about to turn 31. His minute total went up and spiked last year, but like 29 in 2022, 26 in 2023, 26 in 2024. He's down to 25 this year, right? He had that spike last year, but the fact that Rudy is 33 going on 34 and can still play 31 minutes a night, and there's not really any worry, and he can go for 38 minutes a night if he has to. He is, to me, such an anomaly league-wide and deserves so much credit for why Minnesota has been as successful as they are. And I think that this team is extremely dangerous in the playoffs, is where I'm at.
I know we gave him a lot of love on my question about the top four in the West, but immediately coming out of that is like, I think I'm going to end up regretting not having them in that top four equation whenever we did that exercise.
It's funny. Like, I think I would pick them in a series against San Antonio. If you made me like say right now, I think I would pick them in a series against San Antonio, but I'm so on the idea that the Thunder are still probably the favorites in the West, and they're definitely the favorites in the West, that I want the like team that has made the Thunder struggle the most, like with the way that you asked that question. Like, if you had asked the question of it just being like, who are the top four teams in the West, I would have said Minnesota for sure.
Which is not how I ask it. Yeah.
Yeah. You asked it as like, if you were guaranteeing yourself to get the finalist, like, who would your four teams be? Yeah. I don't know, man. They're awesome. Minnesota is really good, and Rudy's a huge part of it. Obviously, Ant's the biggest part of it, and Julius Randle has been awesome this year again, and it's just Jaden McDaniels taking a nice offensive leap this year too. But to me, so much of it is Rudy again.
Yep.
Okay, you are up with your second trade team.
Let's go to the other side of the standings. As you mentioned at the top, we like to talk about every team around here. And this isn't just like, Sam, this truly is not like, hey, let's talk about the Indiana Pacers, because we haven't talked about the Indiana Pacers. We talked about the Indiana Pacers a lot last year. And I think I am truly interested to see what they do at the deadline. I think they are a fascinating team at the deadline, because I think that they have potential guys they could sell. And I also think they're a team that, even though they're the worst team in the NBA right now, record-wise, could also buy, because we all know why they're this bad. Like there's no question about what this team's goal is going to be in 2026, 2027, when they get Tyrese Halliburton back. They have Pascal Siakam, and then guys like Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, TJ McConnell, those guys all fall right back into their roles. So I don't know if you want to start with, are they sneaky sellers or are they sneaky buyers? But I find them interesting on both sides of that coin over the next few weeks.
So I don't think they're buyers. I will say that. I would be interested to hear your case on why you think they could be buyers.
So I wonder why they would not potentially be in the center market at this deadline.
Okay. So what centers are you interested in them chasing?
So I would just say, if Daniel Gafford is available for whatever reason, why I think that would be a great move for Indiana to make right now and just go secure that guy for next season and beyond, as opposed to waiting to the offseason. Either of the Brooklyn guys, if for some reason Brooklyn's moving off, either of those guys are, why not get involved in that? Let's say Cleveland wanted to move Jarrett Allen, they decide this big four is not going to work. If I'm Indiana, I'm making the call to see if I can get involved there. Trying to see if there's any other names. That's.
Well, we don't even need specific names,
sure,
right? The idea of them buying a center is interesting to me.
And here's the other thing is, while they have a pick at the top of the draft, I don't have what I would call a true center in my top 5 or 6. So I don't think the fact that they could end up with the number 1 through number 5, 6 pick, whatever you want to say, that is not part of the equation, because Caleb Wilson, even if you fall to 4, Caleb Wilson's not coming in and playing center for me. Even if you fall to 6, whoever, Kingston or Yaxel or whoever ends up being isn't coming in. Who's the first center on the, I think Hans is for you, right?
It'd be Quaintance for me, but yeah.
Yeah. So Quaintance or Steinbach, either one. I don't think either of those guys for me are in the range of where the Pacers can land right now. So point being, even with that in the equation, I think them making the early move to be aggressive for a center is something that is flying a little bit under the radar, and I think they at least should be exploring.
I don't mind the take. The only issue is that if I'm them, I want to be as bad as possible this year.
So Gafford comes in and helps me win games. Yeah.
Yeah. Why am I not just, look, I'm 8-31 or whatever my record is, 8-31. Yeah. Let's just lose as many games as possible, guarantee ourselves a top 5 pick. And I think all these guys work with their scheme, basically. If they end up with, maybe not Kingston, because they already have Nembhard and everything, but they end up with Debanza, great. If they end up with Darren, great. If they end up with Cam Boozer, great. Awesome. If they end up with Caleb Wilson, perfect. Great fit. Any of those top 4 guys are awesome fits within the scheme. If they were to fall to 5, then it gets a little bit dicier for me. But yeah, like I think that they're in a really good position here, and I wouldn't want to screw up the tank by going to get a real dude that could, help on the interior defensively when, look, like their defense actually hasn't been like truly catastrophic this year. It's the offense that has completely fallen off of a cliff, right? Like they're 29th in offense, 20th in defense. I would prefer, I think, to go into the summer and then figure it out, unless I got like some amazing deal. Like, so if Dallas for some reason is willing to move off of Daniel Gafford for like Isaiah Jackson and 2 seconds or like something stupid that they're never going to do, right? Sure, then I'm willing to do it. But other than that, like I think I'm pretty good just embracing the tank here.
I want to be clear. Like whenever I say buyers, I don't mean like this would be a tertiary aspect of what I'm saying is that all of a sudden now you're going to win more games than what you want. I wasn't saying like, hey, go get your center right now because you want to win games right now. It was just like, is there an opportunity to swoop in and get somebody now that may not be available this offseason? Or again, to bring up Jarrett Allen, can you be the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Brooklyn Nets trade where they ended up with Jarrett Allen and everybody's scratching their head like, why did Cleveland get Jarrett Allen in this deal? But I
like that idea.
You know what I mean? Like, can you be the third team in a bigger deal that all of a sudden either is willing to take on the money or just is sitting there and this kind of falls into your lap and you're like, oh, okay, now we do land Daniel Gafford in what is this bigger, deal, or again, one of the Nets centers or something like that. Maybe buyer's too strong. I wouldn't be so, if I was them, I would be opportunistic about these possibilities, even with the understanding it could screw up my quote unquote tank. So
I think opportunistic is the right way to put it. Like I'm willing to be opportunistic. Can we talk about like the selling piece of it?
Yeah, because I hadn't thought about them as huge sellers. And then I keep hearing people bring up the Benedict Mathurin to Minnesota idea. And I'm not saying we have to talk about that, but it's like he's going into restricted free agency. I don't know where Obi Toppin's at right now. Jarris Walker. Like I think they have some interesting names. And so, yeah, let's talk sellers.
Yeah. So I don't mind the Mathurin to Minnesota idea. I mean,
I've actually warmed up to it a little bit.
Right. Like 18 points a game hasn't really like taken the jump that we might have hoped this year, but fine player. Good scorer. Doesn't do a whole lot else for me, but good scorer, and Minnesota would actualize him because of their ability to have that great defense with Jaden McDaniels, with Rudy Gobert on the interior, everything like that. I don't mind that idea. The question is like, what does Minnesota give up for him? And like, again, I'm not a Rob Dillingham guy. Are you giving up Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon for him? Or maybe not both of them? Like, are you giving up one of those guys and a pick? Like, what is the vision here for Mathurin in terms of what he costs?
Yeah, like that's where it gets. What does Indiana value coming back there? I don't think Dillingham. I mean, I think Shannon Jr. would be interesting in that system.
I think he would really. It's interesting because like they do thrive off of guys that think it really quickly, and I think sometimes he doesn't do that. The up-tempo nature is amazing for him, I think.
That's where I got to. Like, I think the athleticism and the play style in general is a good mesh. Does he make quick enough decisions and all of that? I mean, the thing you'd be trading out there too is like a couple years before you get into the restricted free agency thing. I still have like Jalen Clark stock. But you're getting into a quicker decision with him, but I don't think like that's going to be a crazy ask in terms of his side of things.
Right.
It would probably just be one of those two guys with, and then some sort of pick capital. I don't know. Like because if I'm Minnesota, I think the idea is that I'm not trading I'm not trading Dante or something, right? Like, and then Benedict Mathurin has to replace Dante in the rotation. So yeah, it probably is around one of those two guys, and then whatever the pick capital is to even things out.
So Indiana, not a tax team for this year. Like they're all set there, not that worried. They're 16 million away from the tax for next year, right? So is there a way for them to get a center and retain Mathurin while staying around the tax number, right? I think the answer is no to that question, which is why I think that moving Mathurin is probably like a pretty real option for them. Do they move Mathurin for center? I don't know that I see any real options on the market right now in that respect. I mean, like if you're Minnesota, I don't think you're doing Berenjay in a deal for Mathurin, right?
I would assume not.
Berenjay would be a really fun ad in the Indiana scheme.
He would. I would assume Minnesota wants to see that play out a little bit more, but I mean, I guess I never know.
Yeah, I would think they want to see that play out a little bit more with Berenjay. But yeah, I mean, like then they have the Jarris Walker thing coming up where Jarris hasn't really taken the leap that anybody wanted him to. And then Ben Shepherd, Ben Shepherd without Halliburton is more difficult and nuanced in terms of evaluating him, right? But like Ben Shepherd has been okay when I've watched him this year. Like I would say he hasn't in any way, shape, or form like taken a leap, right? So with all this now, like you have your four with Siakam, Nembhard, Nesmith, and obviously Mathurin here moving forward. Or not Mathurin, I'm sorry, with Halliburton, not Mathurin, Jesus. With Halliburton moving forward. And then you need to like figure out what else it is. Like you probably keep TJ, you probably keep Toppin. You have whoever this draft pick is coming in that will be massive. I think that they probably move Mathurin. I also wonder, given that Jarris is not taking a huge leap, and I would imagine that his value is not crazy high on the market. Jarris is slated to make $8.5 million next year.
That's not nothing whenever you talk about that tax line that you mentioned. Yeah.
And if there was a team that was willing to take a flyer on Jarris, I wonder if they would look at that right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because if you create more flexibility to go out and get a center for this coming summer, I don't know that Jarris is like a value add in like a center deal right now based off of how he's played. But getting off of his money might be a value add for you next summer. So yeah, like to me, their deadline is all about setting up the future, which is kind of what you're saying. It really is all about setting up the future. And if it's just moving Mathurin, makes sense. Maybe it's moving Shepherd or not Shepherd. Maybe it's moving Jarris Walker as well. Maybe it's, you feel a little bit less certain about what you see about Isaiah Jackson now. Maybe you think he can still be your backup center at $7 million. I think that's not an unreasonable role for him, but maybe you already have Jay Huff there and you're like, no, that's our backup center. And we'd rather get off the Isaiah Jackson money now if we can. Right. So a lot of different options on the plate for Indiana, but I think it involves selling for the most part, unless somebody goes crazy with one of these centers when like, I just don't. But my issue is like, I don't see the player on the market that ends up being, I guess.
No, I think that's fair. I think opportunistic is probably the word I landed on that makes the most sense. I do think Benedict Mathurin at 18 points a game, 37% from three, 5.5 rebounds, like has some playoff experience. I know that was a roller coaster last year, but like, I don't know that that's a name that gets discussed enough when we talk about this deadline in terms of a guy who maybe could really go in and play a role for a team that he gets moved. Like, I don't think Jarris Walker's going to a team and all of a sudden you're excited about that changing, the trajectory of that team that year, maybe long-term or whatever. That's exciting. I'm not saying Benedict Mathurin's going to change the NBA title odds. I'm just saying like you put him on a team that could use some scoring, especially maybe if that team could slot him off the bench. And that's interesting. Like, he could end up being a very interesting name for somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I know the name that I want them to chase in the offseason. I just don't know if they're going to have the money to do it. Like, I would try to go for Kristaps if I was them.
Okay.
Like, I want the spacing. I want the spacing big. And I would try to find like a good backup option as well. But Kristaps is he works perfectly for what that scheme is.
You know who's another fun name if the Thunder went this direction would be Hart.
Hartenstein would be amazing. I don't think they'll have the money to do Hartenstein.
Correct.
I think he will get too much.
And I know he doesn't space, but the way he moves the ball would fit really, because he would make it so hard for you to put two on. You put two on Tyrese, and then Isaiah Hartenstein is making that decision with Siakam and Neesmith and Nimhard around or whoever. Good luck.
No, it's 100% right. I am genuinely really excited to see what they do this summer. I think that, they should have enough flexibility to be creative on the center market. The center market is interesting this summer. Obviously Hartenstein, Porzingis is another name there as well. There just aren't a ton of other great names though, unless like I don't think Utah is going to let Walker Kessler shake loose. Like, I think they're going to keep him. So I do think it's probably via trade.
Yeah.
If you made me say so, to your point, if they can find the right player, but the other thing about them though too that I will say here is that they will probably be the most attractive free agent spot for a center this year, because you will know that you have Tyrese Halliburton coming back who will feed you. You know that they have a starting spot that's wide open. Like, you have no competition there. I would guess that they are probably the one spot that is exceedingly targeted by these high-end free agent centers at the end of the day.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I guess we talked ourselves into, but they're not going to be a cap space team, right? Like, all of this would have to be sign and trade.
Or the mid-level.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where like if Kristaps is willing to do like mid-level money, which given the illness that he keeps dealing with, like, I don't know if there's going to be more than that available for him. That's where Hartenstein,
that's why his name
isn't even possible whatsoever. Like, he's just going to be so much more than what they can even.
I think that is true.
Yeah.
I think that is true. But then I don't know how you feel about Mitchell Robinson in the scheme. Like, that doesn't feel quite as clean to me.
Yeah.
So I like the Zubats idea, sort of, but like, it's not quite as clean as getting one of these like spacing bigs or one of the high level passing bigs, right? Who can play in short rolls and things like that. Because Zubats could do a little bit of that, but not like a crazy amount. But you also need this player to be good on defense is the other thing too. So it's an interesting moving, shifting target to me.
Yeah, I think they're a fascinating team for being the worst team in the league in terms of all of that we just talked about, and that you're going to add a high draft pick to the return of Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they could go find another draft pick. Honestly, like, if I was them, I'd be trying to go find another draft pick, like in this upcoming draft at the deadline, if I could.
Yeah,
like if Minnesota wanted like Mike Conley for Ben Mathurin and Jarris Walker or something, and they were willing to throw in like I guess Minnesota doesn't have its first this year, I don't think, and if they do, they can't trade it for sure because of the Rudy deal.
It looks like they do have it, but yeah, I would assume Stepien would not allow that.
Guess that they're Stepien limited here. Their first rounder's going to Utah next year, so yeah, they're Stepien limited. Okay. I will go next on my final takeaway here. We're going to talk about the Blazers. This is the team that we talked about a ton last year, and we just haven't talked a lot about this year. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about them because they're coming off of an interesting week at the very least. They're 19-20 now, and they're getting Drew Holiday back today. We don't know how that went, but This team has won 5 straight games, including sweeping Houston in a back-to-back, which kind of does a good amount to me. The previous 3 were New Orleans, San Antonio, and Utah, and the Utah game was like a total blowout. I'm just kind of fascinated to see where you're at on the Portland Trailblazers this year, because obviously the Denny Avdia, I guess, like, emergence into the public consciousness has been a thing. We talked so much about Denny last year and how much better he was getting by the end of the year. I mean, over the course of this last little stretch here, Toumani Camara has taken a big offensive leap. He's averaging 15 points over his last 10 games, shooting 45, 38, 65, but he like never gets to the line. He's just in the middle of kind of a hot shooting stretch. Defense is still good. I would say his defense has been like a little bit worse than what it was last year, where we thought he was like very clearly an all defense guy and he was rightfully named to that team. The big one, though, to me is Clingan. Donovan Clingan has been awesome over the course of this run here. And I think they like really, really, really have something important here with Clingan. If you look at his last 13 games, he's averaging 13.6 points, 12 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 1.2 blocks, shooting 63% from the field. He's made 46% of his threes. He's 19 for 41 for 3 over those 13 games. He's also shooting 47% from the line. So, like, let's not go crazy and call him like a floor spacer yet. I want way more sample before I like think this. But the thing that I noticed when I watched Clingan, because last year it just felt super clunky on offense. I would say there are 2 things that I noticed. He is totally adjusted to the speed of the game now. Like, teams are constantly blitzing Denny in his ball screens, and he's just totally comfortable in these short rolls now. Like, he's not sped up. He is completely good, and he's able to make passing reads. Like, in the second Houston game, like, he had like 8 or 9 potential assists. That just, I think he ended up with 5 maybe, but like, it felt like he made the right decision every time he touched the ball in that game. And he was going against another dude that is super strong in Steven Adams, and there was just like no real worry from him. Right. The second thing is, I just think he looks like he's in better shape this year. This is the thing that we talk about with Clingan going back to his freshman year at UConn, right? Was quite overweight in high school, got to UConn, got into incredible shape, and was unbelievable as a freshman. As a sophomore, hurt his foot, kind of ballooned up a little bit, it felt like to me. Got back into really good shape, played his way into shape by the end of the year, was the most impactful big in the country that year, outside of Zach Edey, I would argue, in college, and goes 7th overall in the draft. I thought last year he was like a little bit, didn't have the best conditioning last year, is probably the best way to put it. This year, the conditioning's there. As long as his conditioning's on point, he's going to be a stud in the NBA. Like, I don't think he's quite an all defense guy yet, but I think that's coming at some point. Like, I don't know how soon. Like, I don't know that I want to like put a timeline on it necessarily, but like he makes a massive difference whenever he's in the game. I feel like, especially on the glass right now, but also just like his comfort in ball screens, his ability to play that cat and mouse game. Like, he's really good in all of those settings. So to me, like the Clingan bump this year has been not as important as the Denny bump, but certainly to me, like the second most important thing that has happened in Portland.
Yeah, I watched one of those Rockets games, and like as you mentioned, they were Houston, even with their wing defenders, were blitzing Denny. And I do want to talk, give Denny his due credit on maybe a little bit deeper of a conversation. But, Clingan, nice short roll catch, one dribble to draw the defender, kicked it out to CD Sissoko for the catch and shoot 3. Another one, draws the defender, dumps it off to Camara in the dunker spot. He also had some nice passes just operating from the top of the key, like just throw the ball. He's at the top of the key because he's showing some of that ability to space the floor, even though it takes him forever to get it off. But if you can draw that big defender up, it opens up passing lanes for backdoor cuts and flare screens and all sorts of actions for the off the ball offensive players, the Shaden Sharps, the Tamani Kamaras, etc., to run those different actions. I want to also shout out, like Caleb Love. It has been very inefficient, but he is giving this team 10 points a game, has had some really big games off the bench. I don't know what to think of it, Sam. I don't know how sustainable it is. I don't know any of that, but I think it's at least worth mentioning. Sissoko has started 14 games for them. Again, not super efficient. Same can be said of Chris Murray, but I at least wanted to mention them because I do think the bulk of the conversation is, yes, Klingon, and I agree with the defense, just like the impact because of his size and all of that. But Tumani has really played better recently. I think his defense has been better recently along with the offense. I agree with you that I don't think he's been all defense level in totality like he was last year. But recent watches, I think the defensive impact has been better. He's taking a volume threes. He's at almost 7.5 threes per game. I'm interested to see before we get to Denny more, what has been your Shaden Sharp experience? Because I feel like I always have the same experience with Shaden Sharp when I watch a game, which is when his thought process is correct and he's leaning into playing off the ball, I really like him offensively. I think the defense is still a disaster. But offensively, when he's playing a certain way, I get really intrigued, Sam.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I still get frustrated that like he misses extra passes all the time. Like they will swing him the ball. There's a wide open swing on the next one and he'll just drive like into a defense that looks not set on the perimeter, but there are multiple guys that are like rotating on the interior. And it's like, well, okay, they're just going to go to you now. You're making life a little bit too easy on them. But I mean, the talent is kind of undeniable from like a athleticism, ball handling perspective. I do think as well, the shooting is hard because like the shooting does feel like it's gotten better, but he still takes so many hard ones because like he'll miss skip passes and things like that. Like he'll miss like the swing pass to the next guy. And like, I don't know. There are games where I watch him and like the San Antonio game, he was an abject catastrophe in that game. Like they played him 30 minutes or whatever. He was unplayable in that game, I thought. And then you watch the 2 Rockets games and I thought that particularly the first one was pretty solid. And then in the second one, I thought that the decision-making process was way better. So like, is it a circumstance where like he gets way more comfortable against the team, like the more he plays them and figures out where things are going and he's able to make those adjustments in his head in the middle of games? Or is it that he's not quite there? Like, I don't know, Bryce. I really struggle a lot with Sharp in terms of just the process of how he's playing. But again, athletically, skill wise, driving, I think the shot looks cleaner this year, to be honest with you. I would bet you that like by the end of the year, he's probably at like 35% from 3. But yeah, it's a process. He's probably not my kind of player at the end of the day, but every team needs guys like this too. Like undeniably guys who can really put the ball in the bucket, and he can definitely put the ball in the bucket. There's no real question there, at least as like a 6th man. He at the worst case scenario, I think he's like a good bench player is kind of where I'm at. Like a really high level bench scorer. And given the contract he signed where I think it's like 88-ish, something like that. Like 4 years, 80.
It was 90. Yeah.
90. Yeah. I think that it's probably going to be fine at that number. You want him to be a starter at that number, but I don't think it's going to be like unmovable at that number as the cap goes up.
I think that's where we landed at the time was like, okay, well, if he really figures this out, like if the high points and the good decision-making games and the defense grows at all, this ends up being a really good deal. Obviously, there's a world where it's like he's actually like an 8th man and it looks really bad. if he's one of the best 6 men in the NBA and scoring the ball in bunches off the bench, I think at 12% of the cap, like you're probably like, okay, like that's okay. Like you can live with that. You can survive that. It'll be fine. So, just in terms of the contract, Denny Avdia is awesome, Sam. Denny Avdia is so good. And in that Rockets game in particular, what impressed me was like he was getting blitzed and like he was just very patient all game long. Didn't force the issue, picked his spots, was aggressive when he needed to, and then made clutch plays late. He scored. I know we've been critical of his defense, and I think rightfully so, but he made a couple of defensive plays. He had a transition steal. He had a hustle play where he dove on the court.
Just to stop on the defense real quick. Like, I thought Denny was a really high-level defender in Washington, to be honest. I thought he was pretty good last year in Portland. I think he's like an average defender now. Like, I don't want to sit here and say he's like a terrible defender. I think he's like fine on defense. Like, sure. He's not like a plus. He's like a pretty neutral defender now, when previously he was like, I would say like a plus defender.
Yeah. No, I wasn't trying to say like he was just like catastrophic, but just in terms of, it's been a little bit different, which can be expected whenever he's taking the usage he is. I just pulled up the potential assist leaders on NBA.com. I mean, he's top 10, Sam. Like I think it just speaks to the offense that he generates, along with averaging 26 points, grabbing 7 rebounds. And listen, I get very annoyed with this conversation sometimes because I'm like, they don't blow the whistle themselves. The dude gets to the free throw line, and whether people like it or not, and I realize you can clip calls that you don't like, and listen, it is what it is. Like, fine. If you hate it, you hate it. I say blame the officials, not the players, but whatever. At the end of the day, getting to the free throw line is efficient basketball, and he's figured out the way. If you don't like it and you don't think it's enjoyable to watch, that's your preference. But the dude is hitting 36% of his threes. He gets to the free throw line almost 10 times a game. And that's what you want from a guy that is trying to be the primary creator, initiator of your offense.
He leads the league in drives per game. Like, he plays the most efficient. He plays the most physical brand of basketball of any, like, honestly, I think maybe of any player in the league. Like, he gets downhill. He is powerful. He is strong. He just tries to blow through you at the rim. And sometimes it looks ugly. Sometimes it doesn't. But you can't say he's not putting in the work to try to draw those fouls. You know what I mean? Like, people get crazy about the Shea stuff too. Like, Shea is second in the league in drives. Jaylen Brown is third in the league in drives. Cade Cunningham is fourth in the league in drives. These guys get downhill in order to get to the line, or to kick out to their teammates, or to try and finish at the rim. Like, these are the guys who get rewarded for it because they put in the work. They try to. I mean, he's currently, the funny thing is that, like, for averaging the most drives in the league, he is currently, I think, like 10th in points off of his drives. But to your point, he is first in assists off of his drives per game this year, because he has been such a lethal passer off of those drives to the rim. So, yeah, I mean, I think Denny is like, he should. I was like kind of questionable as to whether or not he was an all-star. And I think in the West, like, it's just really hard. Again, like my point on what I hope that the like coaches do with all-star this year is, I hope they give the benefit of the doubt to the international guys, in all honesty, knowing that we have to create like 16 players of American players, and that we can just like add extra all-stars this year. Like, let's put Denny in. Let's, with Giddey's injury, I don't know if we're going to toss Josh in necessarily, but like, if he makes it, I don't know that I really have like a ton of issue with him making it either. Let's just like give the international guys like Denny, like Jamal Murray, the benefit of the doubt and make sure that they get in, and then we'll handle like the American guys getting in on the back end in order to fill out the roster.
Yeah, no, I'm with. He's been awesome. He needs to be in the All-Star game. However that hashes out, I think he absolutely should.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on Portland? I'm trying to think real quick. CD Sissoko, starting games and not really doing a whole ton offensively, but like big physical, powerful defensive presence. Rayon Rupert, long defensive presence has been kind of an interesting experience. I'm interested to see what happens with the rotation when Drew comes back. Just kind of looking at the box score right now from the Knicks game that is on. We're into the second quarter and Drew has just come on the court. So I'll be interested to see. I was kind of wondering if Caleb Love would fall out of the rotation with Drew coming in, but I think they're only going to play Drew. It seems like 10 to 15 minutes in this game, if you would make me guess based off of the way they're playing. Just with the rotation and everything. Caleb Love has drilled 3 threes in this game as well already. So goodness, what an experience. I will say the young minutes need to go away, please.
I specifically chose a game where he played some minutes because I wanted to evaluate, and my evaluation was it's not ready yet.
Not ready yet. Let's keep him with the G League team for the rest of the year, maybe.
Shout out Rip City. The remix. Yeah. I think that's the best G League team name.
The remix is a great name, but like we have Rob Williams on the roster. We have Duop Reith on the roster.
Duop.
Like, let's go with those guys, I think.
Let's get Duop somewhere we can get some minutes. I like that guy.
Okay. Last topic. Bryce, you're up.
Okay, so before people freak out and like think that I'm like trying to sell something here crazy or a hot take, like this is not my intention. I know like people know how we do things here. I do think it's an interesting conversation, and I think it'll be a fun conversation in general. So my question here is, or statement is, the league leading Oklahoma City Thunder need to make a trade that just shakes up the roster a little bit. That puts somebody new into the rotation. So here's my 2 questions. Sam, who do you think was the leading scorer on the 2024-25 Oklahoma City Thunder that is not currently on the roster for 25-26? Who think the player that averaged the most points that's not on the roster this year?
I would guess that is... I mean, there's a non-zero chance it's Dylan Jones or Alex Dukas or someone like that.
It is Dylan Jones at 2.5 points per game. And my only point here is you get all 14, their top 14 scores from last year are back on this year's team. So my only question here is, we talk about continuity and chemistry and all of that. And I believe in all of those things. Is there even an argument here where, you know what, maybe we could use just an influx of some sort of personality, some sort of player, some sort of something from a player who wasn't on this team last year, didn't win the NBA title last year. And that would actually just give us a little bit of jolt. And like, I'm not trying to overreact. This team is 11th in the NBA in net rating over their last 10 games. They are, over their last 5, they are 14th in the NBA in net rating. Teams go through this stuff. Again, I'm not trying to be hot takey. I'm not even sure I believe this. I'm just saying that, like, is there a world where it's like, you know what, if you're Sam Presti, you go, like, let's just make a small move here. Let's move Isaiah Joe for this player in some sort of influx of different energy into the team.
Okay, so I'm going to start here by saying, no, I don't think they need to do this. Just straight up. Like, I think they're going to be fine. And as J-Dub continues to get further and further away from his wrist injury.
I want to talk about that as well at some point, but keep going.
Make things a lot easier for them. So my answer to this is no, they don't need to do this.
For what it's worth, that is also my answer. I just wanted to talk about it.
If particularly with Isaiah Joe, I think this is a specific answer. Isaiah Joe makes $11 million next season. If they wanted to try to move Isaiah Joe for like a ball handler on an expiring deal that would better allow them to retain Isaiah Hartenstein into the future, I think that is something that I would be willing to discuss. But it would have to be moving Joe for an expiring deal and not just to like, and to go get like another guy who can create a shot and not just to like shake up the roster, right?
Sure.
I think there are moves that they can make that can better position themselves to deal with free agency next year. Also, like I can see the Pistons just taking the Isaiah Joe contract into a, option, right? Like,
yes, please.
Like, is that like a last ditch thing with that trade exception next summer where they have the Dennis Schroeder trade exception, obviously? Like, could you just slot Isaiah Joe into that next summer? And like, that's your last chance vibe, right? To be able to use that trade exception. Maybe they try to do it this year. Who knows? I think that guys like Malik Monk are a lot more dynamic than Isaiah Joe, and I would rather have somebody like that. And I'd rather have some of the other guys that we talked about. But like, if they're able to better position themselves to retain Hartenstein next year, I am all for them making moves like this. Like, I would love to see them consider different options in this regard.
Okay, so can let me just throw a couple things, and I know you're going to push back, and I want to be clear. Like, I am playing. I don't do this very often. I'm like just playing devil's, and it also gave us a chance to talk about the Thunder. Lou Dort right now, who I adore and love and think is awesome, but is shooting 38% from the field and 33% from three. Is that a role, a spot, whatever that you potentially move off from him? He has a club option from next year. That's a very favorable contract, and look to replace / upgrade if you don't think he's going to get out of this funk. Or Kenrich Williams and Jalen Williams, Jay Will, right now are both, like under 6 points. I know Kenrich just like had a ridiculous game and a game winner, I think, and all of that. Like, do you eventually decide like, hey, you know what? Actually, we want to upgrade this big man rotation. Hartenstein has dealt with some injury stuff. Sorber, obviously, isn't available as a rookie. We actually want to supersize and upgrade the front court a little bit. Are those even things that you think you should be having conversations about, just based off like, hey, we have looked human, now at 32-7 and, a handful of losses over the last month?
I think that you can be aggressive, but I wouldn't do something as foundational as moving Dort, because Dort is such a big part of their point of attack defense.
Yeah.
If you want to move Dort to get off of his money, I think that's a summer move, right? Like, again, that to me is let's hold this until the summer. Joe to me is like less foundational, because there are games where like they just feel like they can't play him, right? So trying to find like the name, trying to find the answer of like the creator that works for them, that is an expiring deal. Kobe White would be amazing, right? Like, if they were just like, let's just go get Kobe White for the stretch run. And they have the picks to be able to do that if they would want to. And Isaiah Joe's salary matches Kobe White just about perfectly, right? If you wanted to give up a pick to go get Kobe White, I don't think I'm opposed to that. That would be intriguing to me, at the very least. Bring him off the bench as like your sixth man scorer. Would he be happy with that entering a free agency year? I don't know the answer to that, in all honesty. I think that he might not be super happy with that entering a free agency year, but he also would be playing deep in the playoffs. And
I was to say, what gets Kobe White more money? Averaging 20 a game starting for a Bulls team that fizzes out in the play-in, or averaging 15 points a game off the bench for the Thunder that win a title?
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I would think averaging 15 to 18 points a game off the bench for a team that wins the title. Yeah, like it's hard for me to find the name where I look at it and I'm like, this is an expiring deal that really makes sense for them, with like one of those guys that we've kind of mentioned. Ayo Dosunmu would like fit their scheme really well. I would say that, like he would fit what they do quite well and would give them like another scoring option. Maybe they could be the highest bidder on him. That wouldn't be totally crazy to me, I guess. You know, it's hard to find the guy that's like expiring, that really truly just this is like purely additive. He is a shot creator that works for us, that gives us more flexibility into the summer. Like Anthony Simons makes way too much money.
Sexton doesn't quite fit that mold enough.
Like I don't think Sexton's like one of their guys. Norman Powell would be interesting. If they're like, if the Heat were willing to do like Isaiah Joe and Jalen Williams for Norman Powell, I think that would probably be a value add for them. But I don't know if I'm doing that if I'm Miami. In fact, I'm probably not doing that if I'm Miami. So,
Sam, I stick to Norm Powell, Tyler Hero. One of the two is interesting names for Miami, because I just wonder if both dudes are in their plans. But that would be fun for Oklahoma City.
Yeah. I mean, like Quentin Grimes,
I say
maybe.
Yeah.
Because do they have any exceptions? Like, I wonder if they have trade exceptions.
I was just looking for that as well.
To maybe get Grimes. Like, if the Sixers just purely decided we're doing cap avoidance or tax avoidance, I'm sorry. Like that's a name that could work for them because he can create a bit of a shot. He's not bad on defense.
They have their non-taxpayer mid-level, it looks like.
Okay. Then
which can be used as a trade exception now. So yeah.
Then maybe him. But again, like that doesn't help them for the future, right? That's just like a value. That's a player that you're adding right now, right? Because the Sixers won't want to take back Isaiah Joe. Maybe you could find a third team that, you know, facilitates all of this and everything. But again, that would require the Sixers just like completely selling on Isaiah Joe.
Quentin Grimes.
Or Quentin Grimes, I'm sorry. At like no cost, when Quentin Grimes is like a huge part of why they're decent right now.
And I want to be clear.
That doesn't make sense.
Like, I realize Oklahoma City is 32-7, and they still have the best net rating in the NBA. And like, I'm not sitting here. I'm sure people are yelling at us like, "Oh, why are you guys trying to make a move?" Like, they don't need to make a move. Like, I understand that, and I think that leads to my answer would be no as well. I kind of wanted to come up with three teams that I thought would be fun to talk about, and with them, one, I wanted to talk about OKC, but two, I do wonder, like, just big picture philosophy. I do think at times teams can get stale in terms of the influx of quote unquote new blood in professional sport. Like, I think it can happen. I'm not saying it's happened with this team. I also think the J-Dub conversation is important because, as people have pointed out, this is a wrist injury on his shooting wrist. And like that can be really problematic. Like, the scary thing is I've seen it derail a kid's career in college. One of my teammates, like, he hurt his wrist. It didn't heal right. Like, there was all sorts of stuff, but like, it derailed his jump shot. Like, it really, and listen, J-Dub, I'm sure, is going to be fine, but I could see, I've never had wrist injuries, but I could see where that takes some time to get fully back. And so I think the patience with J-Dub on the offensive end is obviously a huge part of this equation. I know he's played 20 games now, but a shooting wrist is, I think that deserves some patience when you talk about like his 3-point jumper and shot making and confidence and those type of things.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, look, like the thing for them moving forward is all about whether or not they are able to create flexibility. Like, I think that I would guess they feel quite comfortable with their roster right now. But if they're able to like move the Isaiah Joe money, move the, I think they probably want to keep Jalen Williams, if not J Dub, but J Will, because they need another bigger body on the interior. So yeah, like that's something for sure to me. If they're able to move, really it's just Joe, because like Joe is the one that's non-foundational to me. I wouldn't move Dort until the summer potentially. I wouldn't move J Will until the summer potentially. Joe though is the play. Like if you could do Joe and a pick for Kobe White, if you could do Joe and a pick for Ayo Dosunmu, different pick values there in all likelihood. But like, if you could do something, like a 3-teamer for Quentin Grimes or something like that, like I'm willing to hear those conversations out with the Thunder, but I don't think they need to do anything.
Yeah.
This is a team that is still 32-7. And I get it that these games against Memphis and against Utah did not look pretty. And they just lost by $1 billion to Charlotte. And they'd lost to Phoenix before that. But like 10 days ago, they just beat Golden State by like 40. You know what I mean? So
and Portland before that. No, listen, I just thought it'd be kind of a fun one to talk about OKC, but two, just some philosophy things in general. It'll be, and the nice thing is we still have 4 more weeks. I mean, I do think what are they? 1, 2, 3, 4. What, 6-4 over their last 10? If they go 500 for the next 4 weeks, I think this could be a little bit more of a serious conversation, right? If they lose to San Antonio yet again, and lose to Houston, and a few things like that, like, do they actually look at those games and strategically say, oh, maybe there is a little bit of a flaw or tweak for us that we need to go fix? And I think the most important thing you pointed out is they have every asset needed to fix that. Correct. If they do identify something that needs, even in the smallest of things, to make their margin for error as wide as possible.
Yeah, and look, like, to me, they're $44 million into the tax next year if you count Hartenstein's number at 29. If you remove that number, they're like 15 million into the tax. If you remove Joe's number, you're only like 4 over the tax. And they're definitely going to be a tax team next year. Like, I'm not saying they're going to like practice tax avoidance or anything like that, unless Hartenstein leaves. But if you get Hartenstein to agree to like a 4-year, $85 million deal where the number starts at, 22 or something like that, well, he's worth 30. I'm not saying that like that. Maybe he just really wants to stay there, right?
Sure.
Like, I do think that I do wonder if they have ways to like try and ease the burden financially. And if that could start this deadline. But particularly, I think the name that would make sense is Joe.
Sure. Yep.
So, okay. Bryce. That's all we got. We went for 2 hours and 15 minutes. These are supposed to be like an hour and a half. Like we're just out of our minds, this trade deadline. Tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. If your favorite team plays the Pistons, obviously the Game Theory Substack. And I want to reiterate what Sam said earlier, just like with the Trae Young trade, when any trades go that are big enough, we will go live and talk about them leading up to obviously we'll go live at the deadline and break all that down like always. But there's a big move over the next few weeks. make sure you have the bell or whatever hit on YouTube so you can join us. Or even if we don't go live, then we'll record and have a video up very soon. So make sure you're checking, because we will have something up very quickly after any of these moves that are made.
Yeah, I agree. Go to the Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com, gametheorysamv.substack.com. I will have something up on Hauk at least on Monday. I'm not sure what else I will have up. I need to kind of work through that a little bit more and figure out what we're going to do the rest of the week. But yeah, that's where we're at. We will be back either on Friday or in the middle of the week if a trade happens. You know, we are in Kuminga land now, Bryce. So starting this week later on, I believe that is Thursday is when Kuminga is eligible to be traded. So, you know, keep it locked here. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.